Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a portrait akin to that of the portraits in the HOI4 mod Kaiserreich. For this tutorial, I'm gonna be using this source of the German General Rudiger von der Goltz. As you can see here, it has a Getty Images watermark, and about that Getty Images watermark, one of the things that you ought to do as an artist, if you're watching this, presumably a new artist or any artist of any experience level, is that when you're looking for sources, be sure to look in these like companies like Getty, in the websites of companies like Getty Images, Shutterstock, and Alamy for good pictures that you can date. For example, this one I believe is dated 1938. You can just go to Getty Images and look for Rudiger von der Goltz. Wait a minute, I didn't find it there, I found it here. Oh yeah, wait. And this is a server for HOI4 artists, and the server is a big reason as to why I'm HOI4 artist today, and I color his picture. So be sure to join the server. I'm gonna leave the server link in the description. So here it is. As you can see, if you were to, let's say, just look for this image in no, not that image per se, but if you were just to look for him in Google, the images you're gonna find is, well, there's this, but it's a smaller version of this, and quality is a bit worse. The ones that you're just gonna find is like this, which is good, but not as good as this one, of course, since it really focuses on the face. This, which is very small, it's big, but the quality is a bit off. And then people who aren't even him, and this thing, whatever that is. I'm sorry if you were the person who made this, and yeah, sorry, but to me it just looks like Simpsons fan art. And yeah, so even if I use his proper name, I identify this and this. Usually Google Images that does not show the images in Getty Images. Sometimes it does, and sometimes does for Alamy as well, but usually it doesn't happen. Only like a few images are from Alamy or Getty, but most of it is just images that I'm certain are Creative Commons. So you may, but the negative of using images from Getty Images and other stock photo providers is that they have these watermarks, and I'm gonna show you an easy way to remove them, at least for Getty Images anyway. You may have heard of a site called tomato.io or an application called Xeon Downloader, but this website right here, downloader.ia, is a great way to remove images. So to remove the watermarks from images. So, downloader.ia, and yeah, so you can do it for Alamy, Getty Images, and a myriad of other stock photos, and even more coming soon. So yeah, oops. So I can use this, and usually it'll work. From my experience, the Getty Images downloader works really well. However, the Alamy version doesn't really work too well, and I haven't used the rest. But yep, a lot of people use this already. So you could ask them if it works for other stock photo watermarks, or you could just try it yourself. But in my experience, Getty Images the downloader for Getty Images works really well, but not. No, that's my browser. Sorry. But the Alamy doesn't. Alright, so I'm not gonna actually download this because I already have it here. Let's go out, being prepared. Here it is. And as you may have noticed, I have done a portrait of this guy. But with a journalist uniform. And that's called a head transplant, which is out of the scope of this tutorial. Alright, now I'm just gonna teach you how to colorize and crop it and put it on a HOI4 background. So as you can see here, I resized the image so that it is as big as the original image, and then I'm gonna put the original image on top since it has a better quality and isn't, stretching, is probably a lot more sharp. And I'm just gonna delete this and this by using a layer mask. As you can see here, the lighting doesn't really match up, so you click the one below, the one with the watermark removed, then you just make it so that the lighting is at least similar. Like, there we go. Too dark, I believe. There we go. Yeah, it's not the same, but at least it's similar. It's passable. Maybe I should make it less contrast, a bit darker, like so. There we go. Yeah. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's get to the one of the most important steps in of portrait of colorization, that being preparing the lighting. If you learned like how to colorize photos like in YouTube, let's see here. Here. For example, Pix Imperfects one, and New Layers one. In these tutorials, they do not New Layers one. All he does is use the quick select tool and then select the skin, and then use a blending mode, overlay blending mode on the layer, and he also makes a solid color layer, and then he just fiddles with the color to something that looks like skin, I suppose. And Pix Imperfects one method is a lot more complex. That's why it's 80 minutes, almost 90 minutes, compared to New Layer 7 minutes and 20 seconds. And he uses gradients, which is also used in making vanilla portraits, but while that part of the methodology is similar, but it's still pretty wildly different. Now, if you've watched these two, you may have noticed that for Pix Imperfect, he tells you to find a picture with similar lighting conditions, and this guy just doesn't talk about lighting, to my knowledge. And that is what's different with Kaiserreich's style of colorization, is that they edit the lighting to meet their purposes. So that's preparing the lighting, making the lighting fit you instead of you coloring to fit the picture in question, is a common thing you will find in methods of making HOI4 colorizations. And as you can see there, I was cleaning some what we call noise. That's what we in the industry call these little dots here, noise. and I'm using this the spot healing brush tool in content aware. So all you have to do is like hover over the noise you want to remove, the noise in question. You just click and then like encapsulate all of it in this in the net, or whatever you call that, mark the area in which you want to remove it, mark the area in which the noise is in, and then just removes. Usually works really well. However, since these things are really small, that if you like downsize it to HOI4 size, that being 156:10, no one would notice these, but I'm just doing this because I want to. Usually we only want to remove like the really egregious ones, and sometimes, like for example, this makes it like lighter than the surroundings. So what you want to do if that happens, you just use the traditional method of removing noise using the clone stamp tool. So ideally, for like really isolated noise like this, you can just use the spot healing brush tool. But if it's something a lot more complicated that this thing can't really like remove, just use the clone stamp tool, like so. Like so. There we go. Well, that probably could just be I could probably just use spot healing brush tool, but it was only for the sake of example. Alright, so in regards to preparing the lining of this, since this image is really focused on his head, I can't really show you like one of the things we do in order to make the lighting good. So I'm just gonna find an image that's like really big, and yeah, there. As you can see, it really doesn't focus much on his like a face. It also focuses on like his uniform. So when you have pictures like this, what we usually do is like press C, which is the shortcut for the cropping tool, and then we like only focus on his bust. What this, before we do that, what this does is, let me just make it black and white. Another thing, you want to make every picture of yours black and white, so when you color it won't look weird. So if you just like keep it like this, yeah, when you like auto contrast, it doesn't well, yeah, there's a lot of contrast that is added, but you want to get as much contrast from auto contrast as possible. You want to squeeze as much as possible, and to do that you need to crop. And after that, when you click that, see, it Photoshop gives it more contrast. Like before, it gave it a good amount of contrast, but it really didn't. But it really wasn't too different, I suppose. But now it's like really different. See, now it gives it a highlight, so and it has a lot more depth. Alright, so let's go back to Mr. Von der Goltz. And if you're wondering how much like you should crop, a good way is to like try to envision him in a HOI4 portrait. Maybe you could like do this, like make 156:10 canvas, and I'm gonna make it smart object because usually people, when they resize things, they make it smart object. I heard somewhere that it like preserves the quality of the thing in question, but well, since if you convert to smart object, it is the opposite of it being rasterized, and being rasterized means that it's pixelated. But yeah, usually when I want to resize in Photoshop, I make it smart object. So let me just drag it to this later, and then maybe I'll try to see what it'll look like if I resize it to determine what I need to crop. Maybe somewhere around there. There. Alright, that looks pretty nice. But if you don't want to do that, since it's a hassle, and I actually don't usually do that, what I do is like, let me get another bigger image to provide an example, and to do that I need to like look at my previous portraits to see whether which one is a good example. And while we're here, I'm gonna show you like one of my oldest portraits, and here it is. It's either the first or the second. It's not the first, I believe, but yeah. So this is my first portrait, and then you can. I'm gonna show you my latest portrait, or at least the portrait that I really like. As you can see here, I've done him. Alright, let's just compare. Like, when you're starting out in doing portraits, I can assure you that your first portrait will be terrible. That's just a fact of life. Maybe sometimes I've seen people who've done their first portrait and it actually looks really good. Like, but for normal people who don't have a background in a digital art or something, it's gonna probably look like this. However, if you keep on practicing, and I can assure you it will take like a while. Like, if you just go at it for like a few months, maybe, it could look something like, for me anyways, it looked something like this. Something like, when I was practicing for a few months, well, I made something like this. It's, looking back, well, it's not the best, but it is decent. There isn't too many egregious things about it, except for this, whatever that is. Like, it's like curvature there, which I don't like, and the blonde not being too blonde, and yeah. So maybe for you, you'd probably make a better version. If you were to practice for a few months, you'd probably make something better. I hope so. Because when I was doing this, I really didn't follow any guides. I was just doing my own stuff. Another important lesson is that you should follow guides. Like, in the like before I mentioned, like an artist server, we have like a good amount of guides posted there. So if you want to do like this stuff, or in like other methods, such as the method TNO does it, which I also do. But for this tutorial, I'm just gonna do KR, since there really isn't any good, well, not good per se, but I haven't seen any KR portrait tutorials. All I've seen, all the tutorials that have ever been made of KR, I believe, is the tutorials made in Google Docs. A few have been released so far, and all of them have been Google Docs. And to my knowledge, this is the only Kaiserreich portrait tutorial. If you want to do it in the method, TNO does it, there's already a really good 12-minute video about that. Really concise, really to the point, and really informative. It's made by Atomic Falco. Just you go to YouTube and search how to make TNO portraits, Atomic Falco, and but you don't even need to write the Atomic Falco, and it's probably already going to be there. Let me show you how to make TNO portraits. Here it is. Only has 20,000 views, released 10 months ago, and this is really good. And yeah, if you want to make vanilla, you can also watch this guy, Musfak. I know that guy, and he makes really good portraits, vanilla portraits. But so if you want to do vanilla, you go to this guy, or I think you've seen this before. You can. No, this is taking a long time. I'm pretty sure you've seen this tutorial. Here it is. Ignacio Moshinsky portrait tutorial. Made by that HOI4 Portrait guy, also known as the Vladimir Lemon, and on Reddit, the Bolshevik Jew. So yeah, this tutorial is really good, but it's really long. Vanilla takes a long time though. In this tutorial, I've watched it to the end. He, like me, is likes to ramble a lot, and also talks about a lot of things, and the naturally long amount of time you need to take to make vanilla portraits. Yeah, so it ballooned his tutorial all the way to 3 hours 30 minutes and 29 seconds. Hopefully this tutorial will not be that long, but with me rambling a lot, I think it will balloon to maybe an hour. But I value your time, so in the description I will place like timestamps so that you can go to the places, to the parts of the video that you are most concerned about. Because, well, nobody has the time to watch like an hour video, let alone the 3 hours 30 minutes and 29 seconds. Alright, so again, all you need to do is practice. You won't be good like in the first months, maybe. Like I made this in my first month to second month, but then if you keep on practicing, like if you make a portrait, maybe you should, if you can, devote like an hour of time making a portrait every day, so that as the months go by, you improve further, you improve further, you improve further, and eventually, let me just go up here. Eventually, you'll probably make something like I feel bad if I like use my portraits as an example, but as you can see, you already saw how much I improved. But you'll eventually make something like let's go to that's scanner, I believe. Oh no, that's CNO. You'll eventually make something like this, like let's see if I can get some really good KR portraits from here. Something like this Alfrejanza, this Karl the First, maybe this Sigismund Przewalski. Like this portrait's like really good. I know the guy who made this, and it's named Mr. Mano. And if you join the server, and the artist server, and then you see him online, and if you need help, you should contact that guy. He probably love helping you out. And if we ask who sent you, tell Maji sent you. Like maybe you'll make something like this, like a really wonderful portrait, or something like, let me just find it again. Poland. There we go. Not that. No, not that at all. I'm sorry to whoever who made that portrait if you're watching this, but oh wait, no, it's not in Poland. Poland has been that update for a while. Galicia. You'd hopefully make something like this. If you practice enough, like Mr. Mano, he has been like doing portraits like a year, I believe. Like around the time I've been doing this for like a year and a few months. He'd probably have been doing it longer, but only by a few months. Make something like this, something like this, and then you'd probably be able to find a lot of good stuff in the artist survey if you join it, and you'll see just how good you can become. Alright, with that over, let's concentrate on me teaching you stuff. So, one of the first things I do when I prepare the source is I go to noise, reduce noise, and then I reduce the noise by magnitude of 10. As you can see, it cleared up like a lot of like the really little noise that if you zoom out you probably can't see, but I like my portrait smooth, so yeah. And then I think I'll just like remove a bit of the pic. I think it's, yeah, it is already cropped enough. If I were to crop it any further, then I believe that I'd probably not have enough things to put in the frame. So, and yeah, I think this is enough. And then when we do, as you can see earlier, is auto contrast. And then, but what I haven't shown you is this is a relatively new thing I've learned, taught by the same guy I told you about to contact for portrait help, Mr. Mano, by the way. If he were to, let's say, change his name, the top comment of this video will, I will like pin a comment to notify you guys if he ever changes his name, so you can always ask him about portraits, and be sure to remember to tell that I sent you to him. He'd be overjoyed. And yeah, so what we're doing here, we're selecting the face and maybe some of his hair, and a bit of the background. Well, mostly you want to select his face, but if you like, you know, select some parts that like the hair and stuff, it's fine. Alright, so the next thing we're gonna do is make a layer via copy, and then we're just gonna auto contrast again. As you can see, it gives it even more contrast. And let me delete it off the hair so that the hair won't look weird. Like, for example, like this part is brighter than this part and it doesn't look good. So yeah, I'm just gonna delete that. And be sure to use a 0% hardness eraser, so like a hard border won't like appear. Hard dark light border, and because that looks not too nice. And then this is a thing that I do. To my knowledge, nobody does this but me. But I like to go even further and select even less. To like, see? It improves the depth a bit. And then, yeah. I want any hard borders. I just want it like in the eyes and stuff. And in the nose, mouth. There we go. That's pretty nice. Alright, let's merge it with the layer. And then it seems that it has come to my attention that there is still a bit of noise. Let me just clean that up real quick. And there we go. There. Yeah. And then the next thing that we do is that, as you can see here, he's a bit bright. There's a lot of highlights. We go to image adjustments. Another important thing, ensure that your portrait, the source that you put in Photoshop, and about that, making these kinds of portraits like this and my one, where was it? This. A lot of what we do when we do this, make this, is that wait, this is the right one, right? No, wait, no. Huh. Seems that I have gotten lost. This is the right. Yep, this is what I just did earlier. Alright, so about Photoshop, A lot of the things we do to make these portraits, it requires Photoshop. Like a lot of features we use, it requires Photoshop. And so if you use other applications like Paint.net, I don't think it will work too well. Maybe you can like, if you're knowledgeable in Paint.net, then you could probably like emulate what I've been doing using the equivalence features in PDN. And but I also frequently use PDN, and don't mind me here, I'm just checking if this is actually the one that I did. Yeah, it is. I do use a lot of PDN usually for like TNO portraits, because if you've watched the Atomic Falco guide, he uses PDN for his portraits. You can also use Photoshop. There are a lot of guides for Photoshop for making TNO portraits, but usually I use PDN. Since I've used PDN for making TNO portraits, I haven't like really seen like any equivalence for like contrast or the next feature we're gonna use. So if you don't have Photoshop, if you go to the artist server, then someone can help you out. So if anyone asks you, just say that a friend tipped you or something. Anyways, wait, doesn't that mean like you get part of the feds? Whatever, just go to the artist server and someone can help you out if you don't have Photoshop and want it. Alright, so the next thing we're gonna do is go to image and adjustments, and also mode. Ensure that the sources are in RGB color. Sometimes black and white portraits pictures make it so that Photoshop makes the color mode grayscale, and you want to make it RGB, because if it's grayscale, what it does is that if you post it like in Photoshop, it's going to look like the same, right? Grayscale RGB. But if you post it like on Discord, if you post it anywhere else, it's gonna look dark, really dark, and it's gonna look darker basically, and that may throw off the entire portrait to make it look a bit too dark. So ensure that it is an RGB color. And I used to like do a lot of my portraits in CMYK, but RGB is better. Because, I don't actually know the exact reasons, because I'm not sure too much about the differences between RGB and CMYK, but in my experience, RGB is the way to go. Alright, now that tangent. Okay, image adjustments, and then you go here, shadows and highlights. What this does is, remove shadows. That removes the shadows from here. So if you like your portrait, like one of your sources like really heavy in shadows, for example, this guy, George Van Horn Mosley, he's also in Kaiserreich. His portrait is pretty nice. I've heard that they replaced it, since they've been replacing a lot of the American portraits. For example, this guy is pretty dark, and if you do the thing I did, like when you select this and then you layer via copy and then contrast. Just for demonstrative purposes, I don't really care. Like if it's like that, and then you want to prepare it, since it has a lot of shadows, you want to remove it by using the shadows and the shadows part of the shadows and highlights, and then that's what I do. If you did it not as shoddily as me, then it probably looked better. So yeah, a thing about portraits is that you want to take your time. Don't make it shoddy. Don't like make it like this. Pay attention to the details, and it's gonna look good. yeah, um, you to me anyways, I really want my portraits to like look good since I'm not getting paid for this, so the only reward I'll get is like the end result, and the process is also pretty fun for me anyways. So I really like to spend a lot of effort into the portraits I make, because the fact that I spent a lot of effort in it also brings me some joy. So yeah, some really eye-opening advice. If you want something good, don't rush it. Don't make it shoddy. So I'm just gonna close that. Then go with, oh yeah, here it is. Alright, so since this portrait is not really that shadow heavy, we're gonna make the amount of shadows to 0, the amount of shadows removed to 0, and then what we're gonna do is like remove highlights. So as you can see here, it removes the amount of white light that is on his face, and this ensures that the things that this this brightness is obscuring is revealed once more. A good way to know how much you want is to ensure that there are still highlights, but they're not really covering the details too much. So we do this like to make it look crisper, because there are more details, and to ensure that the skin doesn't look too white. However, you want to make sure that isn't too dark like this. Like for example, if it looks like this, that means like I've removed 100%, and the skin is like pretty dark, and then like a lot of the highlights have been removed, so it looks a bit flat. Yeah, you don't want that. So I'm gonna just remove like 50. I think that's a good amount. It reveals a lot. It doesn't remove too many highlights. So I think 50 is a good amount. Here we go. Just to be sure, I'm gonna, since I did this one, and I think the result is ignore this one. That's from when I forgot to turn off grayscale. As you can see, it looks really dark. Yep, it's pretty similar. Maybe this one is a bit darker, or is it? Yeah, a little bit more contrast, but they're essentially the same. So yeah, there we go. And then before we color it, there's like this really this brightness here. I'm just gonna go to here, select brightness and contrast, and I'm just gonna. Alright, so we call these things masks, like layer masks. The thing, I'm pretty sure I've like talked about it when I showed you the tutorials from YouTubers that aren't doing this, like for HOI4. These masks basically allows you to apply and erase easily without it being destructive. So I'm just gonna demonstrate it. So if I'm just gonna do Ctrl I, and what that does is like if I were to like add contrast, it adds to the entire picture, right? Well, if I use Ctrl I, it won't. And the only way I can get it to apply is that alright. As you can see here, there's if you go to like layer mask, it's gonna have only 2 colors, black and white. What you want to do is press X, so it's white, and then that's how you apply it. So if a picture has like inconsistent like contrast, and you wanted to make it the same so it'll look good, just use this and Ctrl I, and then you can now selectively place the contrast where you want it. then maybe you want to blur it a bit so there aren't any hard edges. And usually in portrait making, we use HOI4 Portraits usually use like Gaussian blur. Though if you want to use another kind of blur, then feel free. It really isn't dogma though. A lot of HOI4 artists like to use it. Maybe that's a bit too dark. So then I'm just gonna reduce the opacity. There we go. And then maybe I'll make a separate brightness and contrast layer. Almost. There we go. I think that's good enough. Alright, let's you know what? I'm just gonna save it as Rudiger von der Goltz prepared. And usually you can name it whatever you like. I just like to say prepared and add other adjectives to it so that I know how far along a certain picture is in the portrait creation, portrait colorization and creation process. Nobody says that, only I do, and I just said it now. Alright, ensure that it's a PNG because JPEGs may change its quality. So always use PNGs. Alright, so we're going to go to a website called colorizePhoto.com, and this isn't like a website that auto colorizes it. So this is how it works. On the left side, we have Mussolini here, and on the right side we have this Italian American actor. And what we do is that we select this like his skin so that it creates like a gradient. And what a gradient is essentially is like on top of here is the color we apply to like the white part, and then on the bottom is the color we apply to the really dark part. You can also do this in Photoshop. Photoshop does have a gradient tool, but gradient mask and stuff. But I shouldn't have said that you can do this in Photoshop because you can't really. The closest thing to it, I believe, is like you individually select color from like, you know, the bright part, the dark part. But it doesn't really match that well. I haven't tried it. Maybe you could, but this is a lot more practical. And one of the glaring questions you may be asking is that, why is he so red? Well, that will be answered later. I know that he is very red, really, really red. No man should be this red. But yeah, since he's also really red, that's why he's really red. And you may say, why don't I just use someone who isn't really red? Well, you say you could, but everyone uses this guy, and everyone bases their guides off this guy, at least for a white guy. If you like want to make a portrait of someone who isn't white, we also have like other skin sources. You can find them in the art server, or I can give it to you by DMing me, by adding me as a friend. And to do that, I'm gonna include my Discord name and tag, where you can like contact me and ask me for advice. Don't do it only to Mr. Mano, please. I'm pretty sure he's already had enough people barging into his DMs. Alright, so Rudiger von der Goltz prepared. I need to ensure that this is RGB. Good. Alright, so I'm just gonna color this, and you may be asking, if you are following this step by step, maybe asking that why do I have like why do I automatically have this when I enter the website? It's because I've been, I just did like three portraits to three portraits today. Let's see them. You already have seen them earlier. This Rudiger von Goltz, Alexandro Cantacuzino, and Mussolini. And yeah, I've been doing this today, and then the colorist photo remembers what I used and what I selected. Usually, when I like go from another skin source to another, and then like I open a skin source from another skin source, and then I select it, and then I go out and then go in again. Sometimes it like selects what I selected in the previous skin source, if that makes sense. But if you try it like a couple times, it's gonna remember what you selected. So if your portrait, if what you're colorizing has like a lot of, let's say like shadows, maybe you tried removing them but no luck, and thus it stays on the source. You'd want to like select a lot, like especially the dark parts, so the colorist photo website knows what to apply. But if you like select a lot, and then when you like color the dark parts and then it looks like blue or like really red, that's when if it looks really red, you want to select more. But if it looks like green or blue or something, you want to select less. So if the dark parts look like red, you want to select like everything except this part. If it looks like really red, then you'd want to select like what I have here. But it seems that this isn't really causing problems for me, so I'm just gonna colorize like that using this. Alright, so as you may have noticed, I did it pretty messily, and that is because, well, I can just erase it. You can erase it in Photoshop by putting the original this layer, by saving it and then putting it on top, and then you like erase it, or better yet, make a layer mask on it, and then color it. Use the black one to erase, the black color to erasing. I inverted the layer, so black and white. White means there's pixels, black means no pixels. Usually. Alright, so or you can do that, or what I do as well is this. So I clear it, I decrease the opacity. When you decrease opacity in colorist photo, it also decreases in Photoshop. It's called flow, so that the brush, for example, maximum opacity, if I do this, it follows the speed of my mouse. But if I like reduce opacity, it like is a bit, the brush is a bit let's say slower. It is slower than the speed of my mouse, and that helps me like be a lot more accurate in like erasing like his mustache, for example, which I'm doing right now. So yeah, so it helps me be a lot more accurate, which is nice. So I'm just erasing his mustache. Every time you erase, you want like a really low opacity, so, and hardness, especially hardness. So when you erase, it won't the edges won't look like a solid block. I want it to be diffuse, that looks natural. and that's what hardness does. It makes it hard, and thus a lot less natural, usually. And then there we go. And then let's erase the eyebrows. Let me just increase the brush size. And here, it seems that his eyebrows aren't the same size. And then the eyes, except for the eye meat, and then like sometimes I like to leave this part out because, well, sometimes that part of the eye is red and I want to usually reflect that, so I just leave that part of the sclera skill colored. Be sure you erase everything else except for the eye meat. Don't want that to be erased because that is also red. And then the hairline. You especially want low opacity, low hardness on this, so the hairline looks a bit smooth, and I see it there because I went to the skin a bit. Alright. Lower opacity, increase the size of the brush. You may have a hard time with like doing this, maybe, because, well, the brushes in here, they're, let's just say that doing like if you were able to do this in Photoshop, which you could, it's a lot easier because instead of just like changing the sliders, you can like go press Alt and then like drag, so your mouse will be, no, your brush will be smaller, bigger. So yeah, using colorized photo does take a bit of practice. That's why if you are new to colorized photo, and when I was starting out with colorized photo, I found that the brushes to be clunky. I implore you, if you find that the brushes are clunky, implore you to like just practice with it for a while. Then maybe once you're comfortable with it, you could like continue, or like just use Photoshop to erase the red. It is because, well, if you feel comfortable with the colorized photos brush, you can like do this more efficiently. Not the erasing part, but also the coloring part. Alright, a little trick here. Press save. Don't actually need to do this, but it's safe. Do save, save. Very safe. Then sorry. Close. Open it again. And look, what we have here. You already have the selection selected. You have the guy still colorized. And then you want to do this when like there are some parts that you ought not to erase, but you still erased it. Like, for example, some parts of the eyebrows ought to be skin, but you erased it. Then maybe here. Strange hair he does. Yeah, he has. And then there we go. I think we are finished. Hairline and all. Rudiger von der Golds prepared colorized. There we go. .png, thankfully. Nice photo saves it as a PNG. There. Rudiger von der Golds. Alright, so Next thing we're gonna do, maybe that was a mistake, so I'm just gonna black and white and clear this. Low opacity, and this is how you can do it in like Photoshop. You just click a black and white layer mask, or as I said earlier, put him behind him and then open and then do that, erase it and stuff. Alright, there we go. Then maybe I want to add a bit more color there. Maybe not, who knows? We'll go here. And then to demonstrate what I said earlier, here, here. Oh, yeah, I have 90% opacity. Here we go. There. Rudiger von der Goats. And then we go to image, adjustments, hue and saturation. Hue, since he's too red, we need to add a lot more red, yellow, and then he seems to be a bit saturated. Reminds me of a, like his saturation currently reminds me of an old portrait I've seen earlier. Who knows? Alright, we want to decrease the saturation to too much, 24. Usually I decrease it to 24. Usually you should aim like for a range of 20 to 24. But that's for white guys. For like Asians, for like Indians, usually I go like even to 30, 40. Asians usually also 24, but maybe a bit more. And then blacks also decrease the saturation a bit. And that's because of the skin source we use for those races. So there we go. On the goats. Currently, usually when I see people using guides, they only like stop at the skin colorization, and then they just, well, only when they figure out how to make the skin look like skin. Don't do that, please, because there's also another really important thing. The most obvious part is the lips aren't colored. So what I usually use is like this, like pure red. So I overlay 10%, then I zoom in, and then I color the lips, and then I also use this red. Yeah, there was some red on the mustache to color like the eye meat, whatever you call it, and then this part that's sometimes red, sometimes not. Usually it is red in like old people, and he's pretty old. Hey, wait, when was this from? Am I getting so many mentions? Deutsch Biograph von der Golds, 1930. Oh, this is from 1930, but sometimes getting images mislabels their pictures. So be sure to like, if that picture is like available in, if there's another source for that picture, you could like check when that picture was taken, to see if the picture you're getting is actually accurate. And then you may be asking, why am I like trying to get a blue? It's because, well, if humans have these things called color zones, and these are an example of color zone is a blush. Like when you exercise a lot of blood is going through your body, and because of that, your face gets like really red. Yeah, that's blood circulating through your face, so it's red and stuff. And then what I'm selecting here, the blue thing, is like if you're a man and then you shave your mustache and then you wake up at 5 o'clock, you shave again, you may see that around your mouth is a bit blue, a bit gray, and then under the eye bags, also, like your eye bags are also a bit blue, a bit gray, maybe, but sometimes also red. Usually it's red, isn't it? Mm. And maybe you've also noticed that the skin on your forehead is a bit yellower than the rest of your skin. And these are what we call color zones, subdermal color zones. You usually just say color zones. I'm not going to go through the science, all the science behind that. You can look it up for yourself, but what I just said is like the simple abridged version. Alright, so what I usually choose for the blue color zone, the 5 o'clock shadow, is I used to like choose like a baby blue here, but now I choose like around this range, blue, perhaps even purple if I feel like it, like a really purplish blue. Now I'm just gonna pick like a really deep blue, dark blue. So just color in the. Be sure that your hardness 100 or not. I'm not really your boss, but usually I like it 100%, zero bright, zero hardness to make it diffuse, because color zones aren't hard. They don't have hard borders. They usually are very diffuse, and the diffuseness makes it look natural. Alright, so usually these color zones are placed like here, here, and then around the mouth. They're the most powerful, and not on the mustache. Just I usually like put that on top of here and maybe here as well. And then filter, Gaussian blur, filter blur, Gaussian blur 3, and then as I can see here, there's like stuff that I failed to color. So I'm just gonna fix that. I blurred it so that it is even more diffuse. I really like it when it's really diffuse, so you can really like spot the edges. I guess you could make a rough approximation if you were, let's say, to see this. And then alright, so obviously, well, maybe it's not so obvious, this isn't like the final form of the color zone. We usually, for blue, I decrease it to 15%. I decreased the opacity by 85. Now it's the opacity is 15%, and there we go, color zone. Alright, the next color zone I'm gonna add is like the blush. Just pick a red that isn't like really bright red. I usually just pick here. You pick there. You usually want to like eyeball your colors. Some guides, like especially the written guides, all the written guides, I believe, like give you colors that the specific artist always uses. Well, I don't use any specific colors. I just eyeball it, because it's more efficient than like checking on a guide to see what color I ought to use, or like opening a PSD of a portrait that you just did, that you've done, and then you just like click on the layer on the layer color mask, and then just see the hex code. Alright, so for the red one, I usually use like 10% opacity. And then blur it. You place it like on the ends of the ears, the cheeks, and the tip of the nose. And then the yellow one, you place it on like this part of the forehead. Maybe make it a bit redder and saturated on the top of the forehead, like the situated on the you situate it on the northernmost extremity of the forehead. Well, not really northernmost, topmost, but around here, this area. Then this part of the cheek, and then like at the ends of the mouth. And then I like to Gaussian blur it. Sometimes this part is too small, so when you like blur it, it gets like ultra diffuse. And if it does this, just like reinforce it more with brush strokes and soft light. Usually I always, for yellows, I do like 10%. There we go. And now usually no, not usually, really, almost all the time, ever since like I do hair portraits, I color the sclera, because the sclera, if you like see in the sclera of an old person, it's usually like yellowish, a bit dirty, I guess you could say. So you pick like a reddish brown color to color the sclera, because the scleras are rarely like pure white. Maybe for like young people they are, but for someone like as old as him, I believe it's gonna be a bit more colored. There we go. Don't overdo it or else you'll get crack eyes. A bit darker. There we go. And then he had blue eyes, so I'll select the blue. Maybe that's too deep of a blue, since most people with blue eyes, they usually have like a cyanish. It's not really cyan, it's just navy blue. No, not navy blue, basically like bright blue. Sometimes. There we go. I usually put the blue on overlay. I used to do it on like soft light. That doesn't really work, does it? Overlay. There we go. Maybe I should make it more cyanish, darker. Well, usually I like to match it with the brightness of this gray. Actually, I don't. I usually do that for other things. There we go. Yeah, so blue eyes, and then a thing I just like to do is make the eye glints brighter. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hard light 40%. Voila. And the hair color, usually you want to color everything, because nothing is truly ever black and white or completely desaturated. And since this is a black and white image, everything was at that point completely desaturated, and the hair, the gray hair color probably had like a tint of, if it's blonde, like a tint of yellow, tint of brown. I'm just gonna select the brown color, gonna put in overlay, and then since that doesn't really look natural, I'm gonna reduce the opacity. So I just want to give it like some color, a bit brighter. There we go. Maybe, because if you see like the hair of old people, it's not completely gray. It's like a bit of brown in there, yellow, or whatever you call the color, blonde, like blonde hair, blonde color. Who knows? And there we go. And then the mustache as well. For young people, of course, you saturate their hair more. And then I'm just gonna Gaussian blur it, make it the color more diffuse. You want to do that especially on young people, because sometimes the hair color seeps into the skin. You can erase that, and then to make it look a bit more natural, you blur the color like what I just did earlier. Alright, so we're done with the face. Oops, sorry about that. We're done with the face, and as you can see here, some parts are some of the skin seeps into the cloth. So what I'm gonna do is like make a black and white layer, and this is like from when I selected the face to make it have more contrast. That sometimes happens, but from the looks of it, it really isn't that noticeable. So I'm just gonna ignore it. I mean, I can't fix it, of course, but meh, it really isn't too noticeable. If it's like really noticeable, then it is imperative to fix it. But if it's like if you zoom out and then you can barely notice it, like me, then it really isn't too imperative, because if you can't see it, then there's a good chance other people can't. And when you shrink it down to 15610 to HOI4 size, probably it's going to be like a few pixels are gonna be brighter there, but really it is no big deal. Alright, so as I said earlier, black and white pictures completely desaturated and desaturated the picture. So when something is like pure white or pure black, it probably isn't. Nothing is ever black and white, just really dark shades of gray, or really light shades of gray. So and for yellow suits, usually I give them like a yellow tint. I'm just gonna select like a really bright yellow, which pick whatever you like. It doesn't really matter, because I'm just gonna reduce the opacity to 10%. Just gonna maybe make it a bit redder, not yellow. Make it orange. Apologies. If that happens, so you just press enter. Or I believe like click on this. Shit, that's what I did. Oh, alright then. Yeah, press enter. You can press like on this if it's like this. Oh wait. If it's this. Oh well. Just press enter then. Seems I was wrong. There we go. Yeah, so we just colored this, and then if it seeps to the skin like what I did earlier, I saw that my brush went over the skin. Yeah, just erase it like so. Let's check where this has been. You don't have to get it pixel perfect. You usually don't have to get it pixel perfect. Like, usually it'll just work. It's gonna look as if you did pixel perfect even though you didn't. But I like doing it somewhat pixel perfect, I suppose. So yeah, just gonna fill this in, that in, soft light. Yeah, soft light, 10%. And then for the tie, I think I'm gonna. Oh, you can barely see where the tie goes. Make it like get a bright red color to compensate for the how dark that is. For darkness of the tie, maybe not too much. The point it looks unnatural. So that should do it nicely. And then I'm just gonna color the parts. You know, von der Gotts. This really awesome guy called Johnny BL has done a portrait of Mr. Goltz, and using a civilian uniform. Here it is. Oh, that was of no help. You know what? Yeah, I think I'll just use a shade of blue. Desaturate it and color. Usually when something is like black, it's probably has a tint of blue. I think it looks like so. So I'm just gonna put it at 30% blue. Alright. Even more saturated blue color here, but this is saturated because if this picture is anything to go by, the pic, the clothes he was wearing was pretty dark, so the blueness of it probably wasn't even too visible. Well, it probably was visible, but it probably was like that. And then the decoration, this is not the metal. I believe this is just like, it was a part of a various organization for people who had the polymerate, and then this is what they wear to mark themselves as members of the organization. So I'm gonna color it blue. I'm pretty sure that's the polymerate. If it's something's too white and then like the color, if I use overlay and becomes faint, I use hard light. But a warning about hard light: usually it only works if the color is only at most 50% bright. If it's not, then it's gonna look like this. Gonna look too, you know, the color's gonna be too bright, too eye-catching. No, it's gonna look like what I just demonstrated earlier. Just color this, so the edges are a bit diffuse. The polymerate, and then the surrounding are probably gold. This is probably not going to be too visible, so I don't really think that I should put too much detail on it. However, if this is like an actual polymerate and if it's big, I usually like, you know, Google what the polymerate looks like and then kind of like so. Not like like this. Yeah. There we go. And I believe we're done. Maybe make the gold a bit more red. There. We're done. Alright, just save that as ready to go on the golds, prepared, colorized. Yeah. Alright, the next step will not be in Photoshop, but instead in Paint.net, as we're gonna resize. And in my experience, Paint.net, when you resize it, it just looks better. So Paint.net is free, so it won't cost you a dime to do this, to download this app and then do what I'm doing. But if you want to resize, I'm not gonna like force you to resize it here. How could I force you to do anything? But well, yeah, I can't physically like force you. You're watching me on your screen, aren't you? Or other device, or other method of, you know, watching this. But here's the tip: download Paint.net, you resize, use the font resampling option, and then gonna no, the height, yeah, the width, I'm just gonna make it 200. Be sure to maintain maintain aspect ratio, so it's just going to be a smaller version and not like, it won't be stretched or stuff. So yeah, 200, 265. There we go. It's smaller. And then 156 to 10, CTRL-C, CTRL-V. Keep canvas size. Seems that it's a bit too big, and as you can see there, it kind of got a bit blurry if you like resize it normally. So let's resize it manually like that using the resize option, because in my experience looks better. Alright, R70 225. R65. 210 again. And there we go. Usually KR's framing, unlike TNO, also shows like a lot of the torso. Let's say like 60% torso, 40% of the head. So just to keep that in mind when you're framing. Just ensure that it is similar to other KR portraits. Maybe you could like so you'll see here portrait from Kaiserreich or whatever. Basically Kaiserreich frame portrait, and then you could like follow that, which isn't what I do. I usually just like eyeball it. That's why if you've seen some of my portraits, my my framing isn't consistent usually. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. I wish I think it to most people it kind of looks consistent. Sometimes it's not. There's an egregious example of really not consistent framing in that I have. But whatever. Just ensure that don't show too much of the face or too much of the torso. Like, I don't know, to my eyes around like here is fine to me. So yeah, press enter, and then maybe if let's say you watch the Falco guide before me, this guide, and then you've tried it and you like it, you may want to like erase in PDN, but I'm gonna erase in Photoshop. So I'm just gonna save as I used to like do all my cropping, resize and cropping in PDN, but currently I like using Photoshop's brushes more. So 156.210 Rudiger von der Gotts Civilian. The other 156.210 Rudiger von der Gotts was the one where he was wearing a general's uniform. 210 Rudiger von der Gotts, the funny Baltic German general who was responsible for invading Latvia and Lithuania. Funnily enough, to ensure that the international community got off him for being a German agent, imposing German interests in the Baltic, he decided to rebrand his army to the West Russian Volunteer Army in the hopes of the Western powers not thinking of him as an agent of the White Russian forces. It did not work, I believe, and even if it did work, he got defeated and went back to Germany. Let me just erase that. There we go. Maybe that's a bit too rough, maybe. And let me just erase the black, but the really dark parts. There we go. Wait. Five. Alright, this can be dealt with later, so I'm just gonna erase this part. Maybe you should make your brush a bit more diffuse when dealing with the hair. and when dealing with the skin, I'm gonna make it a bit less diffuse. No, it's getting close, of course, since people's skin aren't that diffuse at the edges in it, aren't they? Aren't. Yeah. Alright, so we've cut the outline. Now we need to do is cut the background. If you're wondering where you can find a HOI4 portrait background, you can Google it or ask an artist server. Be sure, however, that you don't use the one with the blue. Like, let me show you. Be sure you don't use this with the one with the blue, and because well, it's not what an actual portrait background looks like. Either maybe you have a portrait that is like leaning to the right or left, and then it's not gonna look too nice if there's like blue there. So just use this. I'm pretty sure you can get it off Google, but if you can get it off the game files, I believe, in the portraits area, or you can just ask in the artist server or DM me for it. Your choice. I like giving people a choice. But it seems women do not recognize that I am a very, 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 very nice guy to be around, as you probably know, and they don't recognize that fact. Very sad, their loss. If you're a woman and entranced by the charisma that I have been outputting throughout this guide, please DM me. Or you could contact me through other services. I like to think myself as a very adaptable individual. Anyways, yeah, as you can see here, black line, whatever, smudge, 5, strength, and just make it so that it no longer exists. There we go. Oh, can't barely see the ears there anymore, but who cares, huh? And then, in order to make the rest of the cutout not diffuse, I'm gonna do this. Duplicate layer, and at the back, filter, blur, Gaussian blur by 1. Maybe I should do the same thing I did with the hair, because it seems that I also need to do that. I see. Well, let's erase it a bit further. I don't want to thin his hair too much. There we go. Yeah. Right, merge that, and then last step. Go to smudge. 45. And what you want to do is like, you know what? If you want, what we were about to do was to, like, you know, make the hair actually look like hair and not a solid block. And the problem is I haven't mastered that yet. Yeah, I know I shouldn't be making a guide if I haven't mastered this, but not a lot of people have. Only like the top Kaiserreich artists actually know what they're doing when they make hair. But I can give you a few guidelines. Don't pull into here. Don't pull in too deep. Be sure to pull out a bit, like so, because if it's too deep, then it's gonna look weird. If it's too much, then it's gonna look weird as well. People usually don't have spiky hair unless they're part of subculture that likes that stuff. But he's not. He's from the 1930s. Probably isn't part of any subculture that involves spiky hair. So, yeah, just gonna. Usually people have like some hair, like their hair like around the ears there, pretty messy or something. And then at the back here. That probably doesn't look too great, but at least I tried. There seems. Alright. And then you want to use the sharpen tool at 40% strength, and then improve the detailing on the hair a bit so that it looks sharp. And the eyebrows and the mustache. And then maybe you want to smudge the eyebrows too so it looks natural. Maybe the mustache. Whatever was I trying to do? There we go. And then finally, last step, solid color. Pick up pure white. This is like a really stylistic touch because I like my eye glints a bit brighter. And then same settings. Hard light, 40. And there we go. The portrait is finished. Now I actually have to do that. That's just what I like to do. So, save it as. Usually, people like to say, portrait, Politacci, Rudiger von der Goltz. That's the Care version, by the way. Care has a portrait of him, and it's pretty great. And then I downloaded it to my hard drive, so I can the portrait in question had like a unique head transplant. I wanted to copy that, but didn't do well. So I just did my own thing. Alright, so what I usually name my portraits is HOI4. Just put the prefix HOI4 so that it shows up here when I type HOI4. Usually a quick way to to find my one of my latest portraits. So just Rudiger von der Goltz. No, HOI4 Rudiger von der Goltz civilian. I usually save the PSDs. Some people have like a master PSD that they use to like help them frame and stuff, which I don't have. Mr. Mano has that, not me. Alright, so you may say that the guide's over, but there's one thing left to do. Post it here. Say this. When you want to ask for advice, maybe you say thoughts. Be sure to not add a question mark because that will be the end of you. Alright, fourth portrait of the day. Alright everyone, thank you for tuning in. See you next time.